day. Welcome to another episode of Cass's Financial Outlook. I am your host, Cassandra Collin, and today we are going to be diving in deeper on part 2 of credit cards. So I know that in the last podcast we went a little bit in depth of how to get your credit cards, but I want to take it back to the basics. But before we begin, I want to start off with our normal disclaimers, normal disclosures of this is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. This is simply what did Cass do in regards to these certain topics. So we're going to dive right into it. So the first thing that I want to revisit on is your credit score. So I know that some people don't even know what their credit score is, and I did say that you should download Experian, Credit Karma to kind of get an idea of where you're at. And I want to also explain a little bit further on how it is that your credit score is calculated. So according to Experian, it says that 35% of your credit score is impacted by your payment history, and your payment history can be anything. So it could be like your phone bill, your light bill, even your rent itself can also be considered part of your payment history. Or if you have a car loan, obviously that does go into your payment history too. Now 30% of the credit score that you have is also accounted by the amount that you owe. So depending on the amount of loans or credit card debt that you have, that impacts your score too. Now 15% of your credit score is impacted by the length of your credit history, so how long you've had credit for. If you have no credit, then obviously that's a 15% that will be taken into account either in a positive or in a negative way. Now 10% of your credit score is impacted by the mix of credit that you have, and what that means, it could be like your house mortgage, it could be your car loan versus your credit cards. So all that means like a mixture of different kinds of debt that you have. So those are the 5 main factors that do affect your credit scores. So obviously make sure that you are making your payments on time. Now another factor is also any new credit lines. So when you do open up a new credit, usually that goes into your credit report. So sometimes it goes into hard inquiries, sometimes it goes into soft inquiries, but that does take into account. So that's a little bit of the credit scores. So once you get the basics down, if you don't have any credit history, then obviously you're going to want to start off with something simple. That's why I recommended starting off with Credit Karma, because that one recommends cards that are tailored to your profile based on what you have available to you. Now, the next thing that I want to go into a little bit more detail is going to be the rewards. So if you didn't know that there's different cards that offer almost no rewards, and there's some that offer cashback, and cashback is completely different from what you see when you go to the store. So I know that when you go to the store, you sometimes see if you want cashback, click the amount that you want. That is not what I mean by cashback, because you can get cashback with your debit and credit. But remember that with credit cards, if you do cash advances, you do get fees on those. Sometimes you get a percentage and sometimes it's a dollar amount. What I mean by cashback cards is, for example, the Discover card that we were discussing last topic, that one has a 5% cashback, meaning when you use that card, if you spend, $100 and you have a 5%, that means from that $100, you are getting 5% back because you use that card. And that's coming back to you in rewards, which is why I said that it could be considered as an additional income, because depending on the amount that you're spending per month and you're completely using it on just cashback, you can be getting money back pretty much every single month for using that card. So for example, if I'm already spending $3,000 on my debit card, I could simply transfer that to a credit card with cashback, because if I'm already spending that amount anyway, I could use the credit card, pay off the credit card instead, and at the same time still be earning quote unquote money because of the rewards that I'm getting. So that's what I meant by rewards. Now, the next thing that I also wanted to go over is your credit utilization. So you want to be below 30%. So whatever amount you have available to you, whether it's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, always multiply that times 30% and stay below that threshold. If you go above that, your credit score will tank. and I promise you it will probably go down double digits, not just single digits, if you go above that 30% mark. And the reason I know that is because it's happened to me before. I'm not proud of that, but I will say that you want to stay below that 30% mark. Now, the next thing that I wanted to discuss is how credit cards work. So some people don't understand how that works. So the difference between your debit and your credit is that your credit cards, you're essentially getting money loaned to you from whatever bank you end up getting. So like your Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, you're essentially getting loans from them. But the way that I see the credit cards is you can essentially use that as a positive thing, because if you're getting rewarded for using their loans, why not use it if you're already spending that money on your debit card anyway? So for example, I like using my cashback in my United cards because I'm getting miles and I'm also getting cashback, and that's essentially how I end up getting free trips. And our next podcast will be in regards on how to get these cards and how to take advantage of their bonuses and their sign-up fee and all that good stuff, so that you can figure out how it is that you can travel for free even after the sign-up bonus. Now, the thing with credit cards is that there's different types of credit cards. So you have your regular credit cards. Some of these offer rewards. Most of them offer cashbacks, right? So with cashback cards, you have some that already have cashback on everything, but then you have certain cards that only offer cashback on certain stores. So I prefer to get the ones that offer just cashback on every purchase rather than certain purchases. So that's why I like my Discover, because that one is 5% just across the board with everything that I get. Now, the other kind of card that you have is your airline credit cards and hotel credit cards. And those are obviously more for travel, because those give you miles or points that can be redeemed for free flights. And you can also stay with like partners, hotels, and airlines. So for example, with like the Marriott Bonvoy, you can essentially stay with all of their Marriott, and Marriott has a ton of different chains that you can stay, because it's not just the Marriott, they have sub chains that you can stay with them. It's like they have their luxury lines, then they have their mid-level, and you have a range from 1-star to 5-star with Marriott. So that's one of the biggest perks with the hotel cards, is that you have the ability to use them for all of their chains. Then you have your general travel cards. Those I haven't really dug deep into this, so I can't really give a lot of feedback on those, but it's basically just for travel expenses, because you get 5 times mile for using them on certain ones. Like for example, the United one that I have, if I purchase United flights, I get 5 times miles for those. And if I use it for like regular purchases, it's 2 times mile on certain things and then 1 time miles. And depending on what I purchase, obviously that can go a long way, because I can book a hotel for, I think, less than 10,000 miles or 10,000 points a night. And that's how I essentially was able to pay for a stay completely free. And you can find some for like 7,000 points as well for the night. It can go a long way if you are someone who likes to travel a lot. Now, the other one that you have is also your store credit cards. And those, store credit cards, you essentially get like at Academy, Forever 21, Kohl's, Sears. Those, they essentially give you rewards for being loyal to them. I personally don't like getting those because I don't typically shop that often at stores to be building that many rewards. I would prefer getting the cashback or the hotel or the airline credit cards, because those I can actually use for things that I'm going to pay anyway, like my flights or hotels or whatever it is that I'm using my points for. Again, with your certain airline companies, you can transfer points to different portals, and you can also transfer them for purchasing gift cards. So again, those all are different credit cards that you can look into, and we will be diving more deep into different airline credit cards and what their benefits are. So with the other thing that I wanted to mention is balance transfers. So I know we did touch base a little bit on how you can transfer your balance from one account to another. So some cards do have 0% introductory rate. So what that means is that you are not getting an interest rate charged to whatever you are using. So if I use $1,000 on one of my credit cards, I'm not going to get any interest on that card because I have a 0% introductory promotion rate. But after a certain time, that does expire, and the percentage does go back up to whatever it is that you were accepted for. So the way that you get accepted for on your credit, So the limit that you essentially end up getting is depending on one, your income, your credit score, and we did cover in the beginning already on what are different factors that come into play on your credit score. But basically, your credit score and the income is what essentially will determine what your credit limit will be. Because some people have bigger credit limits than others, and that's just because of the income that they receive. So depending on the application that you have, and depending on the income that you have and your credit score, if you have the same card as your friend, you might not have the same credit limit. So whenever you transfer your balance, maybe somebody might have a bigger limit because of the income that they have. So that's the difference between your like credit history and your credit payments. So all of that makes a difference whenever you are getting approved for the cards, because again, the limit does depend on the health of your history, your payments, your scores, and your income. So whenever you transfer a balance, just keep in mind that after a certain time, you do end up paying more over time, because it can jump up to like 21%. But if you are really good with managing where it is that you're transferring it and you stay on top of it and you create a budget on when you want to pay it off by, then it shouldn't really be an issue. So for those of you guys who have a good credit score, you can always go for the cards that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. And for me, those are the ones that are going to give me the cash back, the travel perks. And some of them might have annual fees, most of them don't. The ones that offer rewards sometimes do come with a fee. But the way that I see it is I'm probably going to be using the heck out of it anyway, and I'm going to be taking advantage of the perks that they have available, so the fee doesn't really phase me. Now, if you have okay to bad credit, you probably are best with going with the secured credit cards, because the secured credit cards, what they do is they require you to put down a security deposit most times after you close the account, or when you upgrade to another unsecured credit card, they will give that back to you. So for example, that's what happened to me when I went from my Capital One secured to my Quicksilver one. When I went to the silver one, which is the cashback card, I got my deposit back, which is my security deposit, because that's the money that I've been playing with. I'm essentially borrowing money from myself. They gave that back to me. Those usually don't really have that many high fees, and that one definitely doesn't have any yearly or annual fee. So those are always good to start if you don't have good credit. So most people end up getting credit cards because of the sign-up bonus. I like getting mine because of the sign-up bonuses and obviously like the flexibility with them, the building the points. But just those are different things that you need to take into consideration whenever you are looking at cards, like the balance transfer fees, late payment fees, annual fees, the different cards that there is. Let's just recap and let's go over on what it is that we covered. So first, make sure you understand what is being impacted in your credit score, and the things that impact your credit score are going to be your payment history, your amount owed, the length of your credit history, the type of credit mixture that you have, and if you've opened up any new credits. So if you open up new credits, that also does go into your factor of your credit score. Now, credit limits, so the amount of money that the banks are willing to give you, that's going to be affected by your credit score and the income that you have. So there's different kinds of credit cards. Not all of them are the same. And I will always encourage people to get the ones that give you the rewards, because there's no reason for you to have a credit card if you're just going to be borrowing money from the banks and not earning anything off of it. Might as well get the ones that are going to offer you rewards. And again, some of the ones that have rewards do have annual fees, but there's some that don't. Like the Discover one does not have an annual fee, and you get 5% back on every purchase that you make. So just make sure that you shop around and find out which ones are going to be best for you. So that's a little bit more on part 2 of credit cards. So thank you for tuning in on Cass's Financial Outlook. We will see you next week on travel and how to travel for free. Now, just so that you know, if you are listening to us on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or Spreaker or anywhere that is just audio, do know that we have a YouTube channel where we actually have visuals for those who want to have visual representations of what it is that we're talking about. So you can find us on YouTube at Cass's Financial Outlook. And you can also follow us on all the other platforms. Give us a rating, leave us a comment. Definitely comment on what it is that you want to be learning more about or digging more into, so we can talk about those topics in future podcasts. But other than that, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you at the next podcast. This was podcast number 4 on credit cards part 2.